to make a difference. It's time to turn that page. We got to do the right things if we want brighter days. Cause things ain't getting easy and the road ahead is tough. It's up to you and I to make the madness stop.
Every day the things getting harder, and every day the things getting rough, and every day they hike the food prices, and they implementing more tax for the sake of our twin nation and the youth. Let's stand united, show we not divided. Let's show them now and send them a message now.
Show them that we're the voice of hope.
Send them a message now.
Show them that our country ain't no joke.
Send them a message now.
Show them that we're the ones who care.
Send them a message now.
Okay, thank you and good night to everyone here. Welcome to the UNC series of pre-budget meetings. Tonight we are in Immaculate Community Center in the constituency of Pointe-A-Pierre, which I think I am the member of Parliament for. There are so many lovely people in the audience here tonight. I want to wish them and welcome them and say thank you for coming out tonight on Monday the 12th of August. First let me welcome and say hello to my head table. Joining me here tonight in this pre-budget meeting. It's a series of pre-budget meetings that the United National Congress have been holding over the last 2 weeks. Our first meeting started in Arima, and we have been through some of the areas from through the length and breadth of the East-West corridor. We have worked ourselves down in Caroni Central, there was one. Tonight we're in Pointe-A-Pierre, and for the next few more days, and we end on August the 21st. The last meeting will be on August the 21st in the member of Superior, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, in her constituency on the 21st of August. That will be our last pre-budget meeting for this year before we break, and then we go into our budget preparation based on the feedback we would have gotten from all the, through the length and breadth of Trinidad. So let me welcome on the left of me on the head table, at the far left, I call him a stalwart in our community. I call him a colleague, I call him a friend. I've gotten to know him, Principal Suraj Bali. I call him Everybody Loves Raymond. He is now the principal of the Immaculate Primary Government School. Took over that role in 2020, principal, during the time of COVID. So he had a great challenge, and when you look at his track record from 2020 to now, especially what he has done with our Immaculate Primary Government School, he has raised his standard to one of the best primary schools in our country. Can we give Principal Suraj Valley a round of applause? And I felt it was necessary inviting him to be part of this pre-budget presentation to give his views on the education sector, especially for our young people, our young men and women. Because at that age that Principal Raymond is in charge of, it really sets the tone for the future for the citizens of our country. And when you look at the track record, again, as I said, of Principal Raymond, even recently, a few weeks ago, we got the results and throughout the country on the SEA exams. And you know, when he got the results from the primary school, for his primary school, he sent it to me. And I want to congratulate himself and his team, his brilliant teachers, and the leadership that goes on in that primary Immaculate school. And I'm sure Councillor Nadia Khan Mohammed can attest to that. I don't think she went to that school. She's still young, but she can attest. I think her two children attended that school. So again, I want to congratulate Principal Suraj Bali and his team for doing a tremendous work for the community and the people of Macaulay and Pointe-A-Pierre. So thank you, Principal Raymond. And you will hear from Principal Raymond later on. Next to Principal Raymond, I want to get it right, I call him my friend, I call him my Dharmacha. I have known this gentleman for a while, especially when I was chairman of MIC between 2010 and 2015. Pandit Badis Sitahal Maharaj, at the time between 2010 and 2015, we know him as a veteran within the education sector, serving as a special advisor to the Minister of Education. That time was Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, between 2010 and 2015. His expertise in education is second to none. Besides being a former teacher, he's also, when we demitted office in 2015, he became the Dean of Education in the National Energy Skills Center. And he took that TechVoc institution and NESC to a higher level during that period that he was Dean and in charge of the programs at NESC. So he has also been a temporary senator for the United National Congress when we were debating the marriage bill. Is that not so correct, Pundit? He played a very important part in the Senate representing the United National Congress during that time. He's also been a former first vice president of the Mahasabha. That's why I call him my Dharmacha. So you will hear from him. Well, can you give Pandit Badis Maharaj a round of applause, and you will hear from him later on. And next to me is my colleague, my brother, the member for Faizabad, Dr. Lakram Budo, second to none as far as medical doctor throughout Trinidad and Tobago, not only in the southern parts of Trinidad and Tobago, but I consider him the premier gynecologist throughout Trinidad and Tobago. He's always there giving me advice in the medical field. Whenever you call on Dr. Budo, he's always there willing to assist in whatever way. And he's also a son of the soil from Faizabad. So can we give Dr. Lakram Budo a round of applause? So I will be chairing the rest of the proceedings tonight. Nicholas did a short stint holding on until we go live. And I just want to, before I come back and give my presentation, I just want to ensure you that what we are doing here, at the end of the presentations, we'll be open the floor to you, the audience here tonight, to give your views on what you would like to see or your concerns about this government and the pre-budget. But before I end, I must welcome. I have a team in front. I saved the best for last, Sparrow. And there's a team in front of me in the front row. They're very, very strong supporters since local government. Since local government last year, they have never left Pointe-A-Pierre side, especially San Fernando, Pointe-A-Pierre, and throughout Trinidad. I welcome Christopher Jackman and his team from OWTU of the Pointe-A-Pierre branch, and they have given tremendous support for the United National Congress. Tonight is not really politics, but it would be remiss of me not to welcome Mr. Jackman and his team, led by Mr. Sparrow in the front row. It's always good to see Sparrow. I met Sparrow back in 2015 when I was campaigning in Batu Avenue, and somehow he's still in the tree. So I thank you, Sparrow, for coming here tonight. It's good to see you. So let us get into the proceedings here tonight. I have the honor, really and truly, I want to bring up Principal Raymond Surajwali to really speak to us here tonight, to give his views on the education and whatever he wants to talk about for our community of Pointe-A-Pierre, Macaulay, and throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So I welcome Principal Surajwali.
Thank you very much, MP Lee, my good friend, major stakeholder at the Macaulay Government Primary School. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the table, I'm seeing one of my son and 5 teachers in the midst here as well, our president of the PTA, other executive members. This community is not strange to me. This is my second home. I spent a lot of time here. I would have been here for the last 4 years. But it was the late Nelson Mandela who said that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. I stand and I speak to you against the background. In 2 years' time, God's willing, I would have spent 40 years in the teaching service. And in those 40 years, it will be 25 years actually teaching and 15 years in an administrative capacity, principal. Parallel to that, I would have also worked with the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program for 30 years as a tutor, as a supervisor, and as a center manager. So I would have interacted with youths between the ages of 15 to 25 initially, and then 15 to 35 for over 30 years. And added to that, I would have worked as a mentor with the University of New Brunswick in Canada for 10 years, mentoring teachers and teachers who were doing their degree so as to facilitate their advancement in themselves and education. So when you add that together, you will get a combined total of 80 years experience, MP, in the educational sector, when I'm just 57 years old. But I'm saying this to say that I would have had a wealth of experience from nursery to tertiary. And today, as I speak to you for a couple of minutes, I want to share some of the experiences that I would have encountered in the education sector and what are some of the improvements I would like to recommend based on the experiences I would have shared. When universal secondary education became compulsory and every child had the opportunity to go to a secondary school, that was an excellent initiative. Because I always believe at 11 or 12 years, it was too early to label a child as a failure, whether you fail common entrance or you pass. So that transition from primary to secondary school, giving everyone an equal opportunity, was a brilliant idea. But what we found happening when that era took place, many of the students, because of their varying academic challenges, were not able to cope with the academics. As a consequence, it led to deviant behaviors and their crave for attention because they were not getting the attention in the classroom through academics. Hence the reason in 1988, when this survey was done, it was found out that the majority of the crimes that were being committed were between the ages of 15 to 25 amongst our young people. So the program that I would have been involved in for 30 years, the YTEP program, came about to assist young people, school dropouts initially, who were not academically inclined and who could not cope with the normal the education at the secondary level. An opportunity was afforded to them so that they could have gained some technical experience in a skill, and we would have had skills like welding, skills like building electrical, skills like agriculture, culinary arts, and so on. When that program started, I was here from the beginning of it actually, and we would have trained thousands of young people between that age, taking them off the streets and giving them another opportunity to learn a skill and to make themselves employable and marketable. But sadly, every year when the program ended, and we were about to start the other cycle, as they would have called it, we were always in a quandary as to whether the program will continue due to lack of funding. So every year, that was our predicament, whether we are going to continue. And it so happened from 1988, it started and it continued and it dwindled and it improved and so on. Now the program is very, very low-key. But I want to say that programs of this nature, whereby we can assist our young people in our school system, those who are not academically inclined, if we could provide the financial resources to fund programs of this nature, we can give our young people another opportunity, those who are not academically inclined, to gain a skill and to make themselves employable and useful citizens of our country. That's the first point I want to make. Being in the system itself, I would have realized that we have children who are not mentally stable, who have learning disabilities, who are not academically inclined. So the school support services, a system that parallels the normal school running, is set up there so as to assist our young children who we would have picked up as having learning disabilities and not able to cope with the normal academic. Now, as teachers and as principals and administrators, we are not professionals who could diagnose that situation. But there are certain indicators that we will pick up that will indicate to us that this child needs added help or this child needs professional help. So the school support services will provide that professional help. Our duty is to refer that child, the term that is used, to either the guidance officer or a social worker based on the nature of the problem the child encounters. When the child is referred and that information goes up, that department is responsible doing their diagnostic testing and recommending what is best for that child so that child will be able to function and to cope as any ordinary child. I would like to advocate that sufficient resources be allocated to this department. And I'm saying this against the background that I would have referred, not in this school, in one that I was previously, 2 students I would have referred. And because of the length of time it took, because there were not enough resources, human resources to look after and to deal with the cases, those 2 students who would have referred are now dead. And I will tell you how. At 15 years old, one of the students would have, after multiple series of stealing and so on, brought a knife to kill one member of the ancillary staff. And when we picked it up and we informed the relevant authorities, that child was taken out and sent to a home. The child left the home, and there was no follow-up by the relevant authorities, and that child found himself involved with a group of young men involved in criminal activities. And sad to say, he was involved in a robbery, and he was shot and he lost his life at 15 years. But if I were to go back, what gave me that passion to be a teacher? In 1986, I taught in a school in Laventille. And in those days, you had standard 6. Children who failed common entrance, they were given a chance to write a school event. And there was a child, I know his name, I wouldn't call it here. That child, I would have picked up certain behavioral patterns in that child. That was in 1996. In 1992, I was at KFC in Cuba, and a robbery was announced, and we were all made to lie on the floor. And as I was on the floor there in that position, and I managed to look up, there was this guy standing over me with his gun pointed at me. But his mask was not fully covering his face, so I looked at him and he looked at me. And something struck me that I know this guy somewhere. And then the dreaded word that I wish I would have never heard as an educator, I heard that word that day. And he said, "Sir." With a gun pointing at me, with a mask over his face, and a crowd lying on the floor, he said, "Sir." Fortunately, knowing him saved my life. And I stood and I thought to myself, I said, I always tell my teachers, I said, educating a child is not like planting a plant or sitting behind a computer and programming a computer. And what you program is what you get out. But when you take the life of a child in your hands and you nurture that child, you either make that child somebody positive for society later on. If you're a failure, that child could become a negative influence in society and be a miscreant and be a nuisance in society. And that is what gave me that inner passion and that drive to continue to lead our young people and to help them along. The second child who lost his life was playing with a gun. And accidentally, he shot another young boy. That young boy was the one who we would have referred to. So the point I'm making here, if we have an effective system through the school support services that work together with the educators in the institution, and the process is very, very speedy and there's a follow-up, we could save some of our young people from going out into the streets. We could save some of our young people from craving for attention. We could save some of our young people from becoming nuisance in society by providing that avenue whereby they could be helped. And if we could have resources provided so that more guidance officers and more social workers and more teachers' aid. Many times it is recommended that a particular child needs an aid, but of course that is money. If money has to be allocated so that these individuals could be helped, then so be it, we are saving a life. So the provision through the budget, if we can get a larger sum allocated so that to cater to the needs of those who are falling through the cracks and those who one day could end up being nuisances in our society, I think we need to correct that. Another important point, the resources. Provision of resources at the school level. Instead of teachers having to teach, sometimes we find ourselves having to have fundraisers to provide basic amenities and things of the school. I am saying that there should be adequate resources, funding, so that the resources, the basic resources of the institution could be met, so that the education process will be smooth and the teachers could be doing what they are paid to do, teach the children so that they can get an education to make themselves better. The tech voc area, I know Mr. Benes will speak about that. The trade schools, through the trade school, I myself went through the Tech trade school just for a brief time. And if incentives can be provided through the corporate, from government through the corporate sector to help some of our young people through the apprenticeship system. Texaco would have had that, I'm sure Petrotrin would have had that, the apprenticeship system. Then we could absorb some of our young people as well so that they can live meaningful and make meaningful impact in society in time to come. What we realize is that the OJT program that assists the school and the teachers and so on, the period of time, imagine when you apply for an OJT job, you have to wait 3 and 4 years. And this is the first step towards our young people coming out into the world of work and educating and getting that experience to launch out in a platform later on. If added resources could be provided for the OJT program, then we'll have more resources, human resources available at the school so that to ensure the effectiveness of the programs and the initiatives. Another issue, so many children are graduating from secondary and tertiary, and there are no jobs. There are no jobs available. We are doing recommendations on a daily basis. Our past students will come to us, and they will ask us for recommendations and so on. And they will be so zealous and enthusiastic to come out to give their youthful experience or lack of thereof to go out and to work and to help our country. But there are no opportunities, and after a while, when they realize that there are no opportunities available, it leads to frustration, it leads to a sort of negative self-esteem, very low self-esteem, and these young people tend to give up. It's not like the adults where we could battle and we could fight and we could work hard. But these young people, sometimes their level of resilience is so low that they give up so easily. So I want to say that with these few points and based on experiences and so on, if we were to look at this in the education sector, and we could have some of these areas addressed, then we will have a better society. We will produce citizens who will make positive and meaningful contribution in society, and we will all be in a safe and happy place. I want to end with a quotation from Malcolm X. Education is a passport for the future, for tomorrow belongs only to the people who prepare for it today. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Principal Raymond. Listening to Principal Raymond, what is really struck a chord to me about the story about the death of those two, the young students, I call them. And that is what is going on and pervading throughout our country. For the last 9 years, our education sector has been shambles. And you'll hear much more from Pandit Badish Maharaj about the education sector over the last 9 years. And why this afternoon, my team and I wanted to really talk in our budget this afternoon a little bit more on the education of our young men and women throughout our country. Because you see that crime is rampant throughout our lands over the last 9 years especially. And when you look at the tech block areas that were so powerful under the PP government between 2010 and 2015 that Principal Raymond would have talked about his experiences in YTEP. And that is no longer so when you look at MIC programs, and Pandit Maharaj will talk more about that. When you look at the NESE, those young men and women used to come to those trade schools, those skill companies, to learn a trade and have hope at the end of the day, at the end of their programs. MIC, when I was chairman, we used to graduate between 3,000 to 4,000 young men and women a year. Over the last 5 years that I was chairman at MIC and NESE and YTEP used to do the same. When you look at the track record of what has been happening, that is no longer so. That is why we feel that is why you have that high level of disenchantment among our young men and women who end up doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. So, Principal Raymond, I want to thank you for that short speech. Can we give Principal Raymond a round of applause? I want to just tell you that Principal Raymond has a fantastic program, a fantastic show. I hope he puts it on at Christmas time. Last year I had the privilege of attending. It's called the Christmas Winter Wonderland. It was a fantastic program. Nadia, Councillor Nadia and myself attended. And I hope Principal Raymond is able to get the kind of funding again to be able to put on that show for not only for the children of the school, but for the community and the parents. So Principal Raymond, I thank you. Before I pass on, I bring Nadia Khan Mohammed, our councillor for the Claxton-Bay area, to just bring greetings before I bring on our next speaker. I want to say welcome to Mr. Wayne Barrett and his team from the Mackley Community Village for again allowing us to use these facilities here tonight, and I know they will bring greetings later on in proceedings. I would also like to welcome the Pointe-A-Pierre executive led by Chairman Mr. Ken Lacan and his team who's here in the audience, and as we go along I welcome more people. So I just want to ask Mrs. Nadia Khan Mohammed to come up, our councillor for the Claxton-Bay area, for this particular area, to bring greetings. Nadia.
Thank you. Our very own Member of Parliament for Pointe-A-Pierre, Dr. David Lee, Member of Parliament for Faisabad, Dr. Lakram Bodo, other esteemed members of the head table, my fellow members of council, and you distinguished members of the audience, a pleasant good night and welcome. Like MP Lee would have said, this is one of a series of pre-budget consultations that the UNC has. It's an initiative where the political leader, together with her MPs, and I think they deserve a round of applause for that, where they see it fit to engage the residents of every constituency, in other words, the members of Trinidad and Tobago, to say what they want to see in the budget. This is how a budget should be done. So I'm not sure how the P&M administration does it, but this is how UNC does it. We engage you all, the people. You all are the people who it affects, and we engage you in telling us what you want to see in a budget and how it must be done. So tonight, I don't want to really, in fact, MP, I am fed up. Fed up for the last 7 years when my burgesses call me. I'm fed up of telling them we don't have releases to buy material. We don't have money to buy oil sand to patch a hole. We didn't get the timely releases, the funding to fix our equipment. I am tired of it. And I am not going to stand up here tonight and labor that again. You all know what must be done. Tonight is your night. Tonight is your night where you come and you tell the MP and together with the other speakers, because the political leader is hearing you all. Tonight is your night where you get to say what you want to see in the budget. So once again, I want to welcome you all and to plead with you all to come out and speak, say your piece tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nadia Khan Mohammed for Clarkson Day, and her father-in-law is in the audience, so she did well tonight. Thank you, Nadia. I welcome Shanif Mohammed, a good friend of mine is in the audience here tonight. Thank you, Shanif, for coming out. It's always a pleasure for you to see you and to be among us in Pointe-A-Pierre. Before I bring up my colleague, my next speaker, guest speaker, who will be sharing his views from the health sector, to digress a little bit before we get back into the education aspect. I want to ask, just thought-provoke some certain questions in your mind. As a country, ask yourselves, after 9 years, do you want more of these headlines from the Ministry of Health? And I'll read it out. 19 babies died at the neonatal intensive care unit. This is an Express article on the 21st of April, 2024. Another article headline, Healthcare Crisis, Express 7, May 2024. Another article, Waiting in Vain at the San Fernando Hospital, 23rd of January 2021. Now that might be, the headline might be since 2021, but since then to now, nothing has changed as far as when we go to that hospital, that we always end up waiting in vain. And there are so many friends and families that we know go through horror stories when they go to the hospital. I knew someone personally, an employee of mine took her daughter, a young daughter, about last week, because the daughter, they had suspected she had dengue. She entered Mount Hope Children Unit or the hospital in Mount Hope, Dr. Bodo, at 7 p.m. You know when they saw the child? 7 a.m. next morning. And that was based on pleading and cries from the mother of that baby, of that young girl. And that is a horror story we all endure. There are many elderlies in the audience here tonight. When you go for your CDAT medication, they always tell you, come back. There's never enough, right? Simple things like even supplies for the doctors in our hospitals. And you have to ask yourself, after 9 years, what has this Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and his team done for us, the people in Trinidad and Tobago, after spending billions and billions of dollars over the last 9 years? Now, we all know they blame Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the opposition. We fed up with that, because after 9 years, for Stuart Young, on the papers a couple of days ago, to come and give his government, Dr. Rowley, an A grade, something has to be mentally wrong with those people running this government. All right, so without further ado, you will hear more from me. Tonight is not politics, but I have to say those few words, and I like to introduce you to my colleague, my friend, my brother, the Premier, the one and only Dr. Lakram Bodo, Member of Parliament for Pointe-A-Pierre.
Good night. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy, very pleased to be here at the Pointe-A-Pierre pre-budget consultation. I want to thank my colleague in the Parliament, Member of Parliament for Pointe-A-Pierre, Dr. David Lee. And I sometimes want to say that Faizabad and Pointe-A-Pierre have a lot in common. And as I recognize our friends and brothers from the OWTU, Faizabad is also a fence-like community, just like Pointe-A-Pierre. And of course, the constituents and residents of Faizabad have been suffering from the same fallout from the closure of Petrotrin. So we're very happy to see you here. I want to say thank you for attending, our brother, Mr. Jackman, and your colleagues. So you're welcome. And of course, I want to welcome all the other stakeholders and to recognize my friends at the head table. We heard a very powerful presentation from Principal Raymond Surajbali, and of course, we anticipate hearing Pandit Maraj further in the education sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, so I think we're really on here now. So as MP Lee indicated earlier, there are many issues in the health sector that need to be addressed. I will just want to touch on a few, and then really and truly, of course I want to recognize the councillors and thank them for their contribution. Very hard working, let's give them a round of applause. You know, like opposition MPs, they are asked and they are tasked with doing almost the impossible with little resources. But unlike councillors, unlike opposition MPs, the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health on an annual basis is allocated close to $7 billion. If you multiply that by the 9 years that they've been in office, it means that some close to $60 billion have been spent on the health sector. And the questions you have to ask yourself tonight, and MP Lee alluded to some of those in the newspaper reports, and really and truly, you have to ask yourself if anything has changed since this government took office in 2015. Are you waiting less? And you don't have to answer these questions. These are all rhetorical questions because all of you here in the audience here tonight and those who are joining us, you know, on the live and so on, know the answers. Are you waiting shorter times in casualty? The answer is no, you're waiting longer. Are you getting your surgeries done? The answer is the same, long waiting times. How long does it take to get basic investigations, your MRI and your CT scan? It's a long time. What about the results of blood test investigations? And that will become important as we speak about dengue in a minute. Same problem. And is it easier to get any drugs and supplies when you go to the pharmacies and the health centers? So really and truly, we are no better off than we were when this government took over in 2016. So far from sustaining a health sector that was performing very well when the partnership left government in 2015, this government has managed, with the same expenditure and with incremental increases every year. You have to note there's been no drop in the expenditure in the health sector. With almost the same expenditure, they have managed to make things worse, but I'm sure you're not surprised about that. We will not go into the reasons for that tonight in terms of governance and so on. But before I go into the issues of dengue, and my message really will be more to you, the citizens, because the dengue issue is a big issue. But before I go into that, I just want to raise 4 points that highlight what has happened or what has not happened in the health sector. And one has to do, and we're looking again at all of the expenditure. Look at this, the close to $60 billion expenditure. One has to do with the promise of a cardiac catheterization lab at San Fernando Hospital. And those of you who've heard me speak over the past few years will wonder why I keep raising this. What is so important about this? It means that the people of South, the people of San Fernando, the people of the Southwest Peninsula, the people here who will go to the San Fernando Hospital from your constituency, MP Lee, and from the other surrounding constituencies, are now Another matter, of course, is that those persons, the retirees and employees of Petrotrin, who would have had access to the Augustus Long Hospital and all of the health facilities, now have to fight your way in the public health sector. But the point I'm making is that if you get a chest pain, if you get a heart attack, and you go to the public health facility, you go to San Fernando Hospital, you need something called an angiogram that is not available in San Fernando because there is no cath lab, and therefore you have to fork out between $8,000 and $10,000 to be able to get your diagnosis made, which is something called an angiogram. Why do I say that? In 2015, when we left office, we had everything prepared, including a tender for the construction of this lab. How much was the cost? About $40 to $50 million. So you've spent $60 billion over the last 9 years, but you have not been able to provide this facility. But again, you've been able to promise every year in the parliament, you're promising that you will do this. So that is one of the issues. The other issue in the health sector that citizens of Trinidad and Tobago must remember, and you must never forget this, is that from 2015 to 2020, a fully equipped 230-bed hospital built at Couva was left empty. The government failed to open that hospital. You know what's the irony of that? The irony of that is that patients who went to the Couva District Health Facility and had to be admitted to hospital had to be sent to the San Fernando Hospital, where they would have to wait on a bed. So can you imagine someone being transferred in an ambulance from Couva, driving on the road, passing this brand new facility with the lights and so on? It was well lit up to a time until they failed to replace some of the bulbs and so on. Another story. Can you imagine that? The irony of that. And then they call it a construction site, and lo and behold, COVID was a bad thing, but thank God for COVID in a kind of way. Because, of course, when COVID came about and the beds were needed, within 2 weeks, they were able to operationalize what they call a construction site and make it work. And it saved so many lives for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But lo and behold, what has happened? Now it has been closed again. It's being used, I'm told, for outpatient services and so on. But that is a terrible shame on this country. The other disaster that is happening very quietly, as often happens under this government, is the fact that they're destroying the careers of young doctors. And I say that carefully, but I also say it because there is truth in it. Every year in this country, we graduate close to maybe 150, 200 young doctors. Previously, up to 2015, these doctors, after internship, were guaranteed jobs in the public health sector so that they could train as house officers, they could become specialists, and so on. Since 2016, you have a situation where many of these doctors cannot find a job. And when they do find a job, it is not a position that they can stay and train. They get sometimes as short as 3 weeks, as 4 weeks, a month, 3 months. How can they be trained properly when the jobs are so short? And of course, the longer they wait to get a job, they tend to lose their skills. It's like a practical thing. In the industry, you know that. If you don't, keep on top of it, you lose your skills. And of course, you need the doctors, but you also need the nurses. And we have a shortage of nurses in this country, and the nurses are migrating. The Minister of Health will want to tell you otherwise. But the government has failed again to take the necessary steps to do what is required to incentivize our nurses to provide the proper terms and conditions, and of course they're leaving. So there is a crisis looming in the health sector. So we have a situation where, in addition to not being able to provide the normal services that you would expect, we also have a government that seems unable, unprepared, unwilling, and perhaps does not have the capacity or the competency to deal with crisis situations. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the crisis situation of COVID-19 a few years ago, when we realized that this government was not prepared and able, had not prepared themselves for this crisis, and was not able to handle this. And this is evidenced by the Simongal report, which has stated very clearly and pointed out very, very clearly the shortcomings of the care or the lack of care of this government in COVID-19. Now, so let's talk a bit about dengue. And there is a bit of panic in the population with regards to dengue. And you can't blame the population, you can't blame citizens, because they're thinking, listen, is the same thing happening here? Are we seeing a pattern? Is testing being done? Are they providing enough resources? Is it the same kind of thing where the figures are being hidden and so on? And those are the questions that are being asked. So I will give a bit of advice on dengue, but before I go there, I just want to say that, again, the government has shown that it was not prepared, is not able to heed advice. November of 2023, that's about 9 months ago, right? An organization called CAFA, you all are familiar with CAFA, that's the Caribbean Public Health Agency. In November of 2023, the CAFA made a release, and I want to read from that release. So I'm asking whether the government actually ignored this early warning. So on 23rd November 2023, CAFA, in a release, urged its member states, of which Trinidad and Tobago is a member state, to reinforce measures to reduce the spread of dengue and other mosquito-borne diseases. It noted, CAFA that is, noted the increased number of suspected and confirmed dengue cases in 2023. So CAFA said, listen, these cases are increasing, we have to watch out, and advised member states to take definitive action to minimize cases and to limit deaths. So the advice to the member states was essentially to place greater emphasis on mosquito control activities, I'm using CAFA's words here, on mosquito control activities in homes and communities. So they said, yes, fine, take your precautions. We all know what we have to do in our homes and so on, make sure we don't provide any breeding places. But they also said communities, and this is where it is the responsibility of the government to take care and to deal with the mosquitoes in the communities. Now they'll have you believe that they're doing the spraying, and then they will be saying that too much spraying is dangerous and so on. But although I agree to some extent, the point of the matter is that if you haven't sprayed for years, then it's unlikely that the mosquitoes are going to develop resistance. So what is the role of the government and the Ministry of Health in all of this? There is a division called the Insect Vector Control Division, very important division. Now you have to understand, in the health sector, some functions are the role of the regional health authorities. You have the RHAs. So of the $6 billion, we're talking about budget, so it's important to understand how these things go. So when the Ministry of Health gets about budget allocation, 6.5 to 7 million, about 4 billion goes to the RHAs together. That leaves about 2-3 billion for the Ministry of Health. And there's something called vertical services. It means that some of these services are directly under the control of the Ministry of Health and by extension the Minister of Health. Insect vector control is one of those divisions. And from what we've seen and from what you have all heard, and the local government practitioners who are here with us because they had to take up the slack in terms of spraying for the mosquitoes, when in fact they were not really resourced for that. So the issue really would have been, why did the insect vector control fall down in terms of the spraying that was supposed to be done? So I just want to close because I know we are here to listen to you. And I just wanted to make the point that you have to be very careful. Do not take the dengue lightly. The majority of cases of dengue will be mild, about 90% will be mild. Sometimes you might have a mild fever and so on. But there is a certain percentage of cases, and you have to be on the lookout both for yourself and for your loved ones around you, especially those people who might be immunocompromised, the elderly, the young, those who have comorbidities and so on. And you have to look out for the onset of something called dengue hemorrhagic fever and dengue shock syndrome, because the deaths that have been reported have been because of the complications of this. So the things that you have to look out for in terms of when you should take your loved ones to seek medical attention. Now, this dengue hemorrhagic fever and dengue shock syndrome tends to occur from about day 4, day 5, and day 6. So the first 3 days, day 1 to 3, is when you get the symptoms, fever and whatnot and so on. But you have to be very cautious from day 4, day 5, and day 6. And really and truly, if you see any signs of bleeding, and at this point, if you have a decrease in your platelet count, so the platelet is very important. And if you have a change in the situation where the person becomes persistent, vomiting, restlessness, a lot of abdominal pain and so on, especially if the symptoms have been present for the first 3 days and it's between 4, 5, and 6, then it is wise to take the patient to a facility, the nearest facility. So again, I urge all to be cautious, do what you have to do, but the government also has, of course, its part to do, and I'm sure that in the questions session, I'll leave some time if you have any further questions on this area, because again, you know, as somebody said, if a bullet doesn't catch you in this country, a mosquito is going to catch you now. So we have to be cautious. So MP Lee, I will close it at this point in time and leave some time for questions from the audience at the end. So again, I urge you to be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bodo, for that enlightenment about dengue and the issues that we are having in our health sector. Now, I noticed, I don't know if Dr. Bodo is aware, but dengue is serious in our community, in our country, and this government does not show, in our view, the kind of care and concern for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll give you a case in point. A couple months ago, when dengue was first starting to appear, but if you listen to Dr. Bodo, he talked about since in November 2023, there were warning signs from CARFA to this government about the rise of dengue back then. MP Indar Singh, in question time in Parliament a few weeks ago, had asked a question to the Minister of Health about the dengue situation and whether or not the Ministry of Health is prepared and what do they have in place in case dengue, the rise of dengue cases increase. Well, who tell him to ask that question? Prime Minister jump across on the other side and say, you know, Indar Singh lying, who say they have increase in cases and so forth. Well, the proof is put in today that if they had listened, even from that perspective, a question being asked, and did the necessary work and did the proper funding to our local government and even within the insect vector unit, give them the funding that is required, we wouldn't have the kind of outbreak that we are having in our country today. And if you look at the history, I think it's over 700 cases, Dr. Bodo, and we had 8 deaths so far from dengue. And it is very serious. I have a friend, his wife is pregnant, their second child, she's 4 months pregnant, and she just contracted dengue. So she is in a panic mode of what could happen to the baby that she's carrying. All right? So that, and it could happen to any one of us. But the bottom line that this government does not show the will and care for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I challenge them to come and tell us here, especially in Pointe-A-Pierre, the care that they have for our people. And I can refute anything that they bring here. Now, so Dr. Bodo, I want to thank you. Can we give Dr. Bodo a round of applause, please? It's always refreshing to listen to Dr. Bodo, especially from the health sector. Many of you would not have known under 2010 to 2015, Dr. Bodo was our chairman of the Southwest Regional Health Authority in the South. San Fernando Hospital fell underneath his remit. He was one of the key people responsible for the Cuba Children's Hospital being built, and the outfitting of that hospital, and we see what is left with that particular hospital at this point in time. But I'm sure when we return to government, Dr. Bodo will again reopen that hospital for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the community of Pointe-A-Pierre and environs. So before I bring on the feature speaker, in my view, Pandit Badis Sitahal Maharaj, I just want to repeat, Pandit Maharaj is a veteran within the education sector, serving as a special advisor to the Minister of Education during 2010 to 2015. His expertise in education is significant. As a former program manager, education system and development at the Ministry of Education, besides being a former teacher, he's a former dean at the National Energy Skills Center, and we have our last chairman underneath the PP government, Mr. Feroz Khan, who was the chairman of the NESC, and did tremendous work in those 5 years when he was in charge of the National Energy Skills Center. And also, Pandit Badis Sitahal Maharaj is a person committed to our country, having served, as I said, a temporary opposition senator and former first vice president for the Mahasabha. I want to welcome, before I turn over, MP Ravi Ratyam is here with Councillor Councillor Dubraj, sorry. I thought we was on a boat cruise. Before I turn over, I just want to say a couple of things about our education ministry. In 5 years, the UNC built 106 schools, and that was under Pandit Badis Maharaj with Dr. Tim Kobi Singh. This government in 9 years has not built one single school for our children. Not one single school. And have spent over 9 years close to $600 billion. Let me just say it again. Close to $600 billion over the past 9 years in our country. That your money, it's not Rowley money, you know. That $600 billion is your money, all right? And not one school was built for our children. Now, behind this community center, when we demitted office in 2015, Principal Raymond would have been aware that that area where the Mackley Primary School and Councillor Nadia Khan Mohammed would know, that we had designed, the PP government had designed a sort of, I call it a little mini education center, where we were supposed to have built not only a new Mackley government primary school, but also a state-of-the-art special school for the needs, for the autistic children of our society, of our community. They started it in around July, August 2015, and this PNM government shut it down. I want to say, when we return, Mrs. Prasad bin Sassa will build that mini education center in the Macaulay area right behind this community center. The UNC, under the 2010 to 2015, created something, and Pandit Maharaj will talk about it, the Workforce Assessment Center, which was geared to certifying our skilled individuals. The PNM shut it down. The UNC created a drilling academy underneath Pandit Badis Maharaj. He was in NESC at the time, a drilling academy. OWTU, a drilling academy for the first time in the Caribbean. I saw Stuart Young parading up and down a couple of days ago on the drilling academy. And I'll tell you from information that we have, and for the past 9 years when we had it operating, today that drilling academy is not functional. So all Stuart Young did, he went down in NESC a couple of days ago, went on the rig, take some photo ops, because I call him the photo ops man now. All right? He like to go and take photos with Maduro and Delcy. He now going down in St. Madeleine, and he going on the rig to talk about taking photos and fooling the young men and women who want to make a career in our energy sector. And I'm sure Pandit Badis Maharaj will say much more on that. All right? under the UNC, right there in Camden, and I welcome Rudy Indar Singh's office manager Rishma and her team, right there in Camden, under the late Fazal Karim as the Minister of Tertiary Education, we created the Aviation Academy right in Camden. And you don't hear anything about it. And the late Fazal Karim coined a term with Pandit Maris Maharaj, from cutting cane to flying plane. So I now welcome Pandit Maris Maharaj to let us listen to him. I tell you, you will be amazed with what he has to say here tonight.
Good evening, members of the head table, Drs. Lee and Budo, and Ms. Principal Suraj Bali, MP Ratiram, councillors, aldermen, Mr. Jackman and his colleagues, and of course, all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and certainly all members of the various media platforms. Now, Dr. Lee invited me this evening. He said, having spent so much time in education, come and share a bit of information, come and share some facts, come and share some things that are not commonly known, but which are important for the progress of Trinidad and Tobago. And certainly education is the most important pillar, because education is about people. Education is about 300,000 students in ECC primary and secondary schools, 300,000 of our citizens. That's a very, very significant component of the nation. And so we always talk about the buzzwords, equity, access, and quality in the education system. Access, go to school. Quality, what is the quality of education that is delivered in the various school types and school levels. And of course, the equality in finding a place there. Let me say, without any contradiction and without any hesitation, the last 9 years have been unmitigated, absolute, and abysmal failure in the education system of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, we always talk about education as the passport out of poverty. Well, in the last 9 years, there's not even a single stamp on that passport. Not a single stamp on the passport in the education system of Trinidad and Tobago. So this evening, a budget is always forward-looking also, while dealing with the micro situations and events and incidents that happen on a daily basis, and all the operational issues that come with that level of society. But also we must think about a budget as something that has a strategy, has an approach, and has a methodology in how we take the nation forward. We cannot take the nation forward unless we understand all the things that we are doing and how all the things come together and consolidate to give value and benefit to every one of us as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And so our principal spoke about the operational issues. I, as a former school supervisor and principal, am well aware of the daily difficulties that we encounter in running the schools in Trinidad and Tobago. We are also very clear on the out of control and rampant crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. But how do we solve a problem, deep-seated problem like that? It takes more thought, it takes deeper thought, it takes more incisiveness in how we plan. And when we execute, we will understand how the nation and all the elements of a country benefit from that. This evening, I want to share one very important project, whether it is shelved, discarded, whatever, disregarded by the Ministry of Education. But education has 5 components, the vision for our children. The Ministry of Education has 5 components of what we expect of our children, our students in the various school levels. One is they must They must fulfill their potential. 2, they must be adequately prepared educationally to fulfill their potential. They must be socially and culturally integrated. They must be growing healthy and normally, and they must be emotionally well kept. And these are 5 components of the vision for our students. If we look at whether we are fulfilling these 5 goals for our students in primary, ECC, and secondary schools, we will understand that it is not happening at all. And so the project I'm talking about is really a surefire win to rid ourselves of many, many problems in this country. And I'm not talking only about the education system. It impacts on crime, it impacts on unemployment, and really it impacts on every aspect and sphere of life. And so the Ministry of Education around 2012 embarked on a project called Neurodevelopmental Screening, Testing, and Treatment of Students. If you could remember that, neurodevelopmental screening, testing, and treatment of students. And that holds the answer and the solution to many of the difficulties that we encounter daily in society. At that time, under the People's Partnership and the distinguished leadership of the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bisesar, and of course the visionary Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, it was something never done in Trinidad. People in a casual way were aware of the difficulties students face, but what was the approach and the methodology to bring remedy to these situations? And this was the first of its kind in the Caribbean and Latin American region. Nobody had done it before, either in the Caribbean or Latin America. And so the Ministry of Education took 8 primary schools, 8 early childhood centers, 2,909 students, and they were exposed to neurodevelopmental screening, testing, and based on the results, they were given a specialized treatment. Now, if you understand the field of neurodevelopmental science, it is just using a term, cognitive processing. What that means, how we receive information, how we understand the information, how we manipulate the information, and how we output the information. That is the function of the brain, to help us to go through these 4 processes, or 4-stage process. Now, what happens for most of the children is that they are not at the same level. They are not at the same level. So how do we bring all our children up to the same level? And that's a very, very important point, because we cannot say just by sending everybody to school, that is the be-all and end-all and the final solution of everything. What is important, as we said in the vision of the child, they must be adequately prepared educationally for the opportunity to fulfill their potential in the field of education. And you know what were the results? What were the results of that? Of the 2,909 students exposed to the neurodevelopmental testing, 2,051 of the students had difficulty in cognitive processing. So if they cannot process information, how will they progress in their learning? 2,051 out of 2,909, which is just over 70%. 70% of our students had difficulty in processing information. So we could give them all the textbooks, we could give them all the curriculum, we could train teachers, we could train principals, we could build schools, we could do all of those things. But if those who go to school have such a deficit in their learning process, then limited value will be realized out of that. And so there is a program for all of these things, and these students went through a 16-week neurodevelopmental treatment program. It's a computer-based program. And just as an aside, all of us know as we get older, many of us, we go on the computer or the iPad or the phone, whichever it is. There are programs, mathematical programs, communication programs, a whole range of activities that keep the brain active, so we hold dementia and Alzheimer's at bay for as long as we can. I'm sure some of the more elderly here will understand we all use these programs because it keeps Alzheimer's at bay for quite a while. So all of these students for 16 weeks, 15 minutes once a week, they were exposed to this program. At the end of 16 weeks, out of a survey completed for 68 of the teachers across the spread of schools, and those 68 teachers represented 900 students in the survey. Here is what the results were. Of those students, the 2,051 who had cognitive processing difficulties, 74% became more focused. 72% of the students had an increased attention span. 69% of the students had a greater grasp of communication, and 70% of the students improved their mathematical skills and abilities. 74%, 72%, 69%, and 70% focus, attention span, communication ability, mathematical skills. What has this government done? Not followed through on something that would have pushed our nation forward. You know how many of these young people who are in crime and gangs and whatever kind of activities that are not for the benefit of society, if they were engaged and if they were exposed to this program in school, we would have been seeing a different society. We have lost 9 years. 9 years. You know, in education it is said, when you have a bad teacher, this is education research, 1 year of being exposed to a bad teacher sets back your education for 7 years. That is education literature, education research. One bad teacher sets back a student for 7 years before that student could recover and progress. You know what it is for us to fall back 9 years? And we talk about access and equity and quality. As Dr. Lee said, we have failed abysmally both on the quality and the quantity because we have not built schools and we have not improved the quality of education delivered to our students across the 3 school types. So we have to understand when we are planning in a budget, we must know what we are planning for. Who is the benefit? How will the benefit be realized? What are the ways in which it is done? All of these things we could start and run immediately because it has been done before. It will continue. All it takes is the ability to see how education will reduce crime, how education will impact on health, how education will impact fewer social services. All of those things have their value and their relevance, but there will be decreasing reliance by those students and families. In fact, in this particular program, the parents were trained on how to help their children have that cognitive ability to process information. And the parents were in widespread praise for the program because they saw the growth and the development. So while I mentioned 4 areas, of course, the academic ability got better. And of course, exam performance also showed because of this particular intervention. So in any budget, in any thinking about any budget, while we address all the daily critical issues that impact and influence our lives, it is also very necessary to see what is important to take the nation forward. So this is one initiative that has to be brought back, as to use the old cliche, on the front burner, so that we can get it right. We can begin to assist our students in their schoolwork. We could give them all the books, all the laptops. Well, of course, that is another disaster in itself, because for 9 years, no procurement of textbooks, no procurement of laptops. All of these things are intrinsically linked with the education of our children. So nothing stands by itself. A laptop is not just a technical device. A school book is not just printed literature. All of these things bring value into every single thing that we do. And so this kind of thinking, the whole world is charged towards the neurodevelopmental approach. And if we are left behind, then another 9 years or 10 years or 15 years, whatever it may be, we will continue to lose our students, we'll continue to lose our young people, and we'll continue to destroy our own nation. You know, we are quick to quote and say Finland and Singapore and Japan and all these countries are doing well. I'll tell you something. This is not the way we solve the problem, by just thinking we could quote Finland and Singapore and any other country. At an education conference in Jamaica, it would have been 2011 or 2012, in a private conversation with just a few of us. The minister of Finland at that time, he said, listen, all of you people in the West Indies, you are talking about Finland and Finland and Finland. Understand your education system is 40 years behind Finland. And this is 2012 or 2011. And we are being told we are 40 years behind Finland. Well, no, we are 50 years plus behind Finland because of where we want to get. In Finland, every home is print-rich, technology-rich, highly educated parents. You have to have a master's degree to teach in a preschool in Finland. That is the nature of where they have reached, which is why we are 40 years behind. But there are good things. If we are intelligent enough, we'll be able to take up and we'll be able to implement and execute within our own education system. So, you know, the message on this is we must all think, even as parents and grandparents, yes, we have behavioral and educational and clinical psychologists, we have social workers, we have guidance officers, but the missing big link, we do not have neuroscientists leading the screening, testing, and treatment of our students. And I say that from knowledge. We have Dr. Bodo here. My son is a specialist neurosurgeon. That is the nature of the brain. A brain ceases to function, you transfer the function to another side of the brain. That is how the brain is wired to execute different functions. And if we stay behind and think only the smaller operational things will change our education system, then we are in a massive state of delusion. So we must all think, therefore, when we are discussing the budget and talking the budget, Dr. Lee asked, what has happened to the neurodevelopmental screening, testing, and treatment of our students? What has happened to that? The second issue I want to talk a bit about this evening is the state of technical vocational education in Trinidad and Tobago. And everybody is saying it's important, it is necessary, and we must have more technical vocational education. But nobody is saying how it is to be done properly. How is it to be done properly? We have industry colleagues here who understand the dangers and the risk if we do not have proper technical vocational education. I was the head of education at NESC, and Mr. Firoz Khan was the chairman. When I went in there with my education background, I couldn't believe how horrible that system was. Teachers teaching, marking, throw away test paper while exam in progress, make students do it over, correct, change marks. This was the nature And we have to be careful about the nature of technical vocational education, Because of Mr. Feroz Khan, when I went to NESE, I told him, he was the chairman, I said, Chairman, I may have to go home today because if I cannot get certain things done, I will not compromise my professional reputation. I said, I want a curriculum expert, I want an examination and assessment expert, and I want public invigilators to come in the classroom to supervise the education. And with all how NESE was doing things, their pass rate was between 55 and 58%. In 3 years, I moved that pass rate to 91%. In 3 years, I moved the pass rate at NESE to 91% because it needs a different kind of knowledge and it needs a different kind of expertise, which is why I say now is the time for a technical vocational university to be established in Trinidad and Tobago. A technical vocational university comes with its own center of teaching and learning. All our experts in here, they are experts in teaching and learning for industry. See, Dr. Lee said, big papi show, big mama guy, about 300,000 spent in NESE on frills and drills, and the rig is dysfunctional since I left. Students have finished a 2-year course, cannot get any certification because they have no practicals. But big photo opportunity, instead of taking that 300,000 and see how they could fix the rig. So we have to bring that kind of quality into the education system. And all our industry employees and experts, they could guide us. And whether we have to do it with a regional partner, whether we have to do it with an international partner, we have to get it right. In Trinidad and Tobago, there are many instructors who are teaching courses and their certification is below the level of the courses they are teaching. That's reality. They are teaching a diploma, none of them has a diploma. What are we doing to our students? What are we doing to our young people? If we want to get it right, we must do what is right. We could only get it right if we do what is right. And we have the skill sets, we have the abilities, we have the people, we have the financial resources, we have the technical support, we have the digital component, we have all the elements and components to create a wonderful technical vocational university in Trinidad and Tobago. A technical vocational university must not be a wing or a unit of something else. It cannot, for it to bring the best value, it cannot be a wing or a unit. It has to be an independent entity. And when it is run by the right people, with the right knowledge and the right skills and the right resources, you'll see how far Trinidad and Tobago will progress. So we have the neurodevelopmental approach, which we have dropped the ball. The technical vocational university, probably we have not even thought about that at the Ministry of Education. Let me give you I know the thinking right now. A couple months ago, Jamaica started, they transformed or they changed 4 secondary schools into technical vocational schools. If we try that foolishness in Trinidad, we will be doing a great disservice to Trinidad and Tobago, because what is it we really want to achieve? We want to achieve the level. We want to achieve the international skill and certification. We want to achieve the regional and international competitiveness. And so this is how we will build that technical vocational, where we create the right people, whether for teaching, whether for industry, and for whatever else we can do. Now, I thought I would have touched a few more points, but the referee gave me a red card. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Pandit Maharaj. There's never enough time listening to Pandit Maharaj. He has a wealth of experience and knowledge, especially in our education sector. And that is why when Pandit Maharaj was with Dr. Tim Guru Singh, led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa between 2010 2015, we weren't seeing the kind of issues that have developed in our country for the past 9 years. So I like the idea. The other night I heard Pandit Maharaj talk about that technical vocational university. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I will tell Pandit Maharaj, he agrees that we have all the ingredients to make that happen. But right now, we do not have a government that has the political will to make that happen. But when Mrs. Prasad Bissessa returns, I am sure with the individuals around her, we might see something called a technical vocational university in our country in the near future. So as we come to an end, Pandit, I am really happy to hear from you. I appreciate the time coming here. And I will now try, before I open it up to the audience for their views, it would be remiss of me if I call on my friend to say a few words, a couple minutes, Mr. Jackman, on the refinery aspect and your views on the refinery. So if we just put that in context, it will be remiss of me if we do not talk about the Pointe-A-Pierre refinery and we are in the constituency of Pointe-A-Pierre. So with just a few minutes, Mr. Jackman, I know I'll put you on the spot. If you could just come and say a view on OWT you feel about the refinery and what is happening with this government.
Right. So, can you all hear me? Could everyone hear me? Nice, nice, nice. Good evening, Pointe-A-Pierre, to the head table, to all parties present, good evening. Yes, I would have been put on the spot here this evening, but at the same time, I'll never turn down an opportunity to speak. So when it comes to the issue of the Pointe-A-Pierre refinery, for persons who don't know, the refinery refining would have been rooted in Trinidad and Tobago now for over 100 years. We have now seen in 2018 the death of an industry that was part of Pointe-A-Pierre. Now we at the OWTU Pointe-A-Pierre branch would have felt the brunt of the closure, but we know it would have also impacted numerous persons within the community. Where we presently stand, there are currently 10 bids before a committee that are being considered for the refinery restart process. And we would have just come out of a very scandalous situation where the Prime Minister of this country would have tried to guilt trip the citizens into believing that we were responsible, when I say we, the UNC as well as the OWTU, for chasing an Indian investor out of this country who would have had known corruption charges. And the Prime Minister would have tried to justify that Trinidad and Tobago. He would have tried to justify it by playing with our intelligence to say that Boeing would have also been accused and charged. So should we sell all and return all the Boeing planes that we have? When he very well knows that all the issues with Boeing were technical issues. Boeing was sued because all the planes were dropping out the sky and they were held responsible for technical issues. We are talking about an individual who has charges for bribery and corruption and so forth. And you as Prime Minister would have chosen to ignore meeting with your 10 bidders to invite this one person to the diplomatic center and try to tell each and every one of us that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I am very happy and pleased that Mr. Jindal would have left this country. And I am quite clear in my conscience to say that the OWTU and the UNC does not have issues with international bidders coming into Trinidad and Tobago. We have issues with a person going into the diplomatic center, meeting the Prime Minister, who has charges of bribery and corruption, especially when you have 10 other bidders who are participating in a process, and in that process, they are also being asked to do their due diligence. They are also being screened to ensure that all their investors are above board. But this person who has allegations against him is being pushed. No. I hold no qualms in saying that I am happy to see the back of Jindal. And I'm hoping that going forward, we have a speedy closure to the remaining bid process where we evaluate the last 10 persons, the last 10 entities, and maybe one could be successful and the refinery could be restarted. So, let us not be distracted by the papi show antics of this current government. I like to use that word when it comes to them because I believe everything they do is a show. The land that they would have given to Petrotrin workers, we all know now that is a show. The argument that they put forward to show that Petrotrin was not a profitable entity, all that is a show. The reason for saying that the refinery was closed down and blaming the OWTU, that as well as a show. And that truth will be put to rest very, very shortly, Trinidad and Tobago. Now, allow me one more thing. We have a serious crisis in this country when it comes to unemployment, and we would have had speakers mention it before. Something urgently needs to be done about this. Now, I've heard economists speak to it, but for persons who don't know, according to the CSO, the unemployment rate is currently at 5.4%. Now, this is as of the third quarter of this fiscal year. I am not too sure about the accuracy of those figures, but I know if persons throw their mind back, remember especially the youths, when they were hiring, when they had a recruitment drive for prisoners up at Golden Grove, the thousands and thousands of youths who came out for employment. Remember when they had the police recruitment drive at Marabella? Remember the thousands of persons that came out, especially the youths. One of the most striking figures that came out of the CSO data was that youth unemployment currently stands at approximately 18%. That is among men and women. This is a situation that, if it is continued to be ignored, will always result in escalating crime. We had speakers speak to the issue of education. We all know the seriousness of crime in this country. Why can't we put two and two together? You have all of these unemployed persons, youths in the country. Let us put them to work. Let us stop reallocating funds to projects that are not important. Projects where you're clearly pushing an agenda to build houses here and build houses there. Let us take some of these funds, put some of our youths to work, remove the influence of crime, combine the system with education, and let us put our best foot forward to fight the scourge of crime. To me, it is an obvious solution. And I want to put that forward as my main recommendation for this upcoming budget. Increase the allocation or take allocations from education and national security, and let us start a public drive to recruit youths and increase the amount of community police within all of our constituencies. Let us at least ensure that we have more eyes and ears on the ground, and I believe that can impact crime. That would be it for me there. I know my time is tight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher. They always say never give a union person the mic. But he was good. He was good, short and sweet. Always a pleasure listening to Mr. Jackman. And he has made a valuable contribution, especially not only informing us about the Pointe-A-Pierre refinery and what is happening, but also that last statement about the unemployment, the youth number. And Pandit Baris Maharaj would be fully aware of it, and Principal Principal Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. So let me say, before I open up the floor, I just want to get the audience in context. I just want to let you know, we had 9 budgets before. And this budget is going to be read sometime either, in my opinion, either the last Monday in September or the first Monday in October. Okay, this government doesn't have money. So they have to bring a budget very, very soon. IMBUD does not have the money, and you see it. All right, government workers are getting paid late. The host of issues go on and on and on. Now, IMBUD is going to present his 10th budget. Let us make it be his last budget now, please. Let us make it be his last budget. This country cannot take a 11 budget read by IMBUD. We cannot. It's too much pain. It's too much pain. And that government lies. They lie. So before we open up the floor, and before I end, I just want to remind you of IMBUD's budget themes. You know, every year they give a fancy name to his budget. All right? His first budget, he themed it restoring this 2016, Eric dotishness, restoring confidence and rebuilding trust. Let us do this together. That's 2016. 2017, IMBUD, shaping a brighter future, a blueprint for transformation and growth. It's only pain we get in 2017. 2018, his theme is changing the paradigm, putting the economy on a stable path. You hear crap? 2019, you know what's 2019? Turn around. That's his theme of his budget. Turn around. You know what happened in 2018, 2019? They shut down the Petrotrin refinery. And he called it a turnaround. And we fall for that. 2020, only put them back in government. Only put them back in government. Right? I ain't calling no name inside here who put them back in government. But here IMBUD budget 2020. Theme, stability, strength, and growth. 2021, COVID, resetting the economy for growth and innovation. Pundit, you ever hear more crap than that? Sorry, Pundit. 2022, budget theme, IMBUD, resilience in the face of global pandemic. 2023, tenacity and stability in the face of global challenges. And last year's budget, 2024, building capacity for diversification and growth. We never had any diversification. We had no growth. So 2025, I go in and team it. IMBUD must go with Rowley. That's my team for 2020 budget. So with those few words, I would like to open it to the audience. If you like to come up and give your views, we'll have it. Please keep it brief. You know we're running behind time. Make your contribution, because I have a team of note takers who will be taking in your contribution. And all I ask, within the cameras and the microphone, if you can come up to the podium and make your contribution. I'd like to say thank you to TV6 for being here this afternoon. I thank you. So when you come up, please state your name, your location, where you live, whether it is in Taruba, in Pointe-A-Pierre, or wherever, and state your case. I thank you.
Pleasant good night, everyone. I just have 2 short points. My name is Shane Samlal. I live in the Taruba community. Right now, Taruba is plagued with crime. Housebreaking, larceny, motor vehicle. Recently, we had an arson and a shooting, robbery offenses, you name it. Taruba have it right now. When UNC was in government, that was a thing of the past. We never heard about those crimes in Taruba. It was quiet and peaceful. Imagine the Marabella police station is less than 5 minutes away. 5 minutes, away. Presently, the Marabella police need more vehicles and extra strength. The charge room is under strength, and from my information, they only have one vehicle attached to the charge room for the whole of the Marabella area. That is a shame. Fitzgerald Hines, you and your new recruit, wake up, stop sleeping on the job. Furnish the Marabella police with the tools they need. Strength, police officers, and vehicles so that we'll have more patrols, may it be foot patrol and mobile patrol. And we want to see the police out there. That is one point. My second point is for the San Fernando City Corporation and the Minister of Sports. What are you doing for the youths of Taruba community? We have two so-called play fields, one in Old Taruba and the other in Taruba Heights. These play fields are not children-friendly. You know what I mean by not children-friendly? Imagine now is holiday time and the kids, they cannot enjoy and play sports in what the condition of the play field right now. We need them to do something about the fields in Taruba. Yeah, I think that is my next point. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. As the next person comes up, let's see his name, and we are very welcome.
Pleasant good night to my head table here on my left and to the enchanted audience out there, or media house present. My name is Radhika Balkaran, no stranger to the community Pointe-A-Pierre constituency, Claxton Bay. I am from Claxton Bay, Soledad West. What I would like to put forward here this evening, and like in our budget coming, MP and the audience, I am passionate about education as well as recreation. As they say, all work and no play makes everyone dull. And if you don't have something to do for the pastime, that is not good for your health. That is on another part that we have at the head table as well, health and education. I have had the pleasure of visiting areas that is pointed out as sites for recreation, beaches, volcanoes, live ones and sleeping ones. And whilst I was there visiting, there were other visitors and families, because at this point in time, school is closed and people is taking their family out with the children. And you know, after school and you enter back school, long ago in my time, you have to write a comprehension on your holiday and what you has achieved and where you went and what you did. But I don't know now if families have places to take their family and children along, because to all the places that I have visited, the beaches and all these places, there is a lack of needies, like places to sit, places to shower after you bathe in the beaches, change rooms, toilet facilities. And these are things that is really troubling. How could you take your young ones out on a vacation? It's not everyone can buy a ticket and leave the country and go and enjoy a holiday. We have the families and the people here who need to be at home. They call it internal tourism. And in the past, while COVID was on, the Chinese government boasted of making millions in internal tourism in China. And we are a small dot as a country. We are not big. We are maximum, let's say 1.5 million, because we have had migrants here. And to develop this small, beautiful space of ours is also going to generate employment. And when I say employment, I'm talking about across the board employment. That when a family, say a parent have to get up to take their children to a beach or something, they have to get up at the wee hours of the morning, prepare meals and everything, and then go on the journey. But that is so tiring. It takes up a greater part of that time. So we want to go to a place where we can take our monies because it's internal, and we can have something, finger foods and stuff to eat, and buy some drinks and all of these things, and have more leisure time when we are out there. So we are generating a lot of income, a lot of different form of employment at a community level, and bringing out all these spaces in the community where you think you can go and have a leisure time, a sightseeing, a hiking, visiting the beach, have a fun day out. And that is something lacking, and we need internal tourism. Another thing again that I'm passionate about is education. And the principal of Macaulay government, my political lead, my member of parliament, Dr. Lee, had given me a political assignment to head a board at the UCB College in Claxton B. It was a local school board. I served there under 3 principals, and I have knowledge of what happens and all that the principal need to move on with what the projects he's looking at. I have a lot of knowledge in that field. As a matter of fact, when I left the board and had to attend to my daughter in Belgium, the ministry called me there because I was very prospective and I did a good job at the school. And they wanted me to do another term. The ministry wanted me to do another term, but I couldn't. And when I came back, it was a different situation that I faced. But I have the time and the energy and the know-how to help in this area. I'm very passionate about education. And this is the 2 things that I need to touch on, that my time, I can help in this field. So, as the principal has said, funding, we have to get the business community involved in this project that you are doing. Everything can come from the ministry. You wouldn't get anywhere waiting for that. And social services. And my member of parliament, in 2015, walking alongside him, he had big plans for the unfortunate children that we have in the community and making Pointe-A-Pierre, Claxton Bay, a model constituency. And that is something I know he will pick up when we get into government. And I thank you all so much for my rendition here this evening, and I hope that we can do something about this in the budget with internal tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. She's correct. In 2015, one of my big plans that if I get one in development was that flower pot beach facility that we really wanted to. Sorry, Kevin, don't buff me. We really wanted to improve that whole flower pot beach facility, make a boardwalk for vendors, and make it nice for the people of our community, not only for our community, but the environs to come and enjoy. So that's still on the plan. It will happen in God's will. So I now ask, I know OWTU is chomping at the bit, as they say.
Good night, MP Lee, MP Bodo, all members, other members of the table, head table. Good night to the residents of the Pointe-A-Pierre constituency. My name is Debbie Prasad, and I am an OWTU Pointe-A-Pierre branch member. I'm also a resident of Marabella West. Minister Lee would have had his team for this year's budget, but for me, this is the goodies year budget, 2024-2025. My contribution tonight focuses on specific items for recommendations. In the area of education, I would like to recommend a book grant for every student attending primary and secondary schools, whether they are public schools, denominational schools, or private schools, of $1,200 per academic year, using the most simplified process for accessibility to parents. Secondly, a functional textbook committee, and I say functional, is needed immediately to review book lists consistent with corresponding syllabuses to avoid purchases of latest edition textbooks per academic year. It is to be noted that some textbooks are not even resaleable after one academic year. Thirdly, revision of duties for the importation of school uniform materials and cost items associated with the printing of textbooks and school materials. Fourthly, under education, an allowable expense for companies up to $20,000 to assist school repairs, purchase of equipment and furniture within the constituency of its business operations, but not limited to. For the curbing of school violence, my recommendation is a stipend be granted to retired teachers, educators, religious groups to conduct mandatory workshops for parents. Energy, human resource training and development. The introduction of a national system that embraces a training culture within all businesses and companies. And tonight we were filled with so much information about the TechVoc area. We have the National Energy Skills Center, we have the MIC, we have all the programs, but we need to embrace a training culture. And this could only come about at a national level, with government support, full government support. So I trust that when our leader takes the prime ministership, we will introduce a national system for embracing this training culture. Under health, the opening of all health centers on a 24-hour basis, but with full police or army protection. Employment of additional doctors, retired nurses, nursing assistants and clerks, and extended pharmacy hours to facilitate a 24-hour opening system for all health centers. And finally, finance. Personal allowance to be increased to $100,000 to assist those who earn monthly income or pension of $10,000. And finally, a floor pension. I know this one will catch Dr. Lee. A floor pension of $3,500, equivalent to the old age pension grant for those in receipt of monthly pension of less than $3,500. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I got our manifesto right here tonight. I want to thank you all, and that is why we have to team our manifesto this year. Imbert and Rowley must go to be able to bring in these kind of, logical and sensible policies for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I think we have the last gentleman. This gentleman is representing society, the Autism Society run by Dr. Radhika Mahis. She could not be here, but she found it she had sent it to me, and I'm asking this young potential lawyer to be able to come out and contribute on behalf of Dr. Radhika Mahes and the Autism Society. Please come.
A pleasant good night, everyone. My name is Leston Rampasad, a law student, a 21-year-old of Bandu Trace, Claxtonby. Today, I will be discussing some proposals as it relates to the education and health sector. Firstly, I propose that there should be an increase in the number of special education teachers. Currently, we have no idea how many teachers with specialization in special needs education are employed by the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education advertised positions last year, and many UTT graduates who applied have not gotten a response from the Ministry of Education. And why? We asked this question, why? Some were even interviewed and still are waiting to be placed. Teaching positions were advertised again this year. We need special education teachers in all primary and secondary schools to deal with the growing population of children being diagnosed with autism, as well as those with a wide range of learning disabilities. Additionally, there's a need to increase the number of teacher aides in both primary and secondary schools. There are parents who applied for teacher aides since 3 to 4 years, and their child has not been allocated an aide. Not only is there a need to increase the number of aides, there is also a need for structured programs to aid teachers to work with children with learning disabilities. And on my last point on education, there is a need to upgrade the student services, the student support services division. An urgent need to increase the number of staff, both professionals and administrative staff, so that students can get support in a more efficient and timely manner. Now I will touch on the health sector. Firstly, there is a need to offer scholarships for medical doctors to specialize in developmental pediatrics. Currently, we only have 3 developmental pediatricians in Trinidad and Tobago, and the waiting period to get a child diagnosed is between 8 months to 1.5 years. This is in light of a reduced number of scholarships given per year, from 500 to only now 100 per year. There is a need to hire more developmental pediatricians. We need to be able to diagnose children as early as possible. If we have more developmental pediatricians, outreach clinics can be extended to health facilities throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And on my last point for health, there is a need to hire full-time speech therapists at our main hospitals. There is a desperate need to hire speech therapists who can work through the public healthcare system. Currently, would you believe that speech therapy privately ranges from $250 to $400 for 45 to 60-minute sessions, with the average parent in Trinidad and Tobago earning $17.50 per hour? Are we actually educating all students equally? We must think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leston. You see, I have no doubt Pointe-A-Pierre had real talent. With Pointe-A-Pierre and Kamala Prasad Bisesa as the Prime Minister, we're in good hands to bring back this country from this wicked PNL. All right? Before we end, you see something on the table. My theme tonight is education. But before I go to that little ceremony part, I want to ask my friend, colleague, mentor, Bishop Mackenzie, to either come and say a few words. Bishop, I know it will be remiss of me. I know you have I would not live it down if I do not ask you to come at least keep it brief. Bishop, it's very late. We have doubles outside for people.
I want to say pleasant good afternoon, good night. More so to the one that organized this forums, Dr. Lee, to the other table officers, thank God for you. And you say what is of Caesar grant to Caesar and what is of God grant to God. We heard the master of ceremony said bishop. So most of my words tonight would be more on a spiritual level rather than a carnal level. And some people don't like that, but I have to say it as it is. Dr. Lee, God bless you. I say this openly because I think that we might be on some media, commerce medias and so forth. And that is what I love. I love, to give Jackie Jacket and Jimmy Jim books. This gentleman, God bless him. And I have to say it over and over because I tell you something, people. Yeah, give him a round of applause or a standing ovation. Give him that. You see, when I get this invitation, I said, wow, it's a pre-budget discussion. And my name is Winston Mackenzie. I live in the Claxton Bay area, close to my neighbor June. I love her so much. God bless you and your husband also. You see, sometimes people want to talk race. You don't talk race about a man belly. You don't talk race about shelter. You don't talk race about wearing. And when people could support you in those attitudes, you can't be ungrateful. And these people, the only thing that I need to wear is Consul Nadia. Consul Nadia is here. Oh, yeah, she's right here. And Consul Nadia, now I know that you have Consul Rajbal now add to your force. I know the ministers from Mr. Daniel Singh right now, but at the same time, I am here to say that I, as an organization, Mackenzie Foundation affiliation, and when this opportunity comes, I just could have just looked at Mr. Lee in his eye because the principle about it, Claxton Bay, I know some of you are going to be marveled now. Claxton Bay, now here is Macaulay. We have Union, we have St. Margaret's. Claxton Bay is on the other side. And I tell you something, people, in times like now, you would believe me that Claxton Bay do not have a community center? Would you believe that Claxton Bay do not have a recreation ground? Would you believe that Claxton Bay, including Macaulay, do not have a multi-complex? Would you believe me that Claxton Bay do not have a primary school? What we have is a temporary church as a school. Sometimes people, we are our own demise. Do you know that Claxton Bay do not have a village council? Do you know that Claxton Bay do not have an NGO? Well then, when this topic did come, I asked permission, and I'm here to mash up the place. In 3 minutes, I will do that and close, because obedience is heaven first love. And I look forward in the year 2025 as founder of this organization, and there will be a convention and concert, so that when you do a convention, in everything is protocol and reasoning people. I tell you something. When you have an NGO in your community, you can afford to write the relevant authority, like the Ministry of Quality and Community Development, the Ministry of Education. And if you want to do that now, there is no organization can write any of these ministries to ask for these amenities and in everything, as much as we're angry people of attitudes that are going on for the past couple of years, we have to do things in protocol. We have to do it in tolerance. We have to do it in understanding, because a one-eye man better than a no-eye man. I'm going and close it. And there is a sufficient amount of evidence. And in that pre-budget, on the next one, Dr. Lee, invite me, and I will give you the total amount that we expect the government to put together in October to prepare a committee. And mind you, I know how technical it is. I have a spot. And you guys could come with me one of these days. Let's go. Visiting must happen. But sometimes we sit down. No minister come and tell you where you want this and where you want this. Well, I am telling them. I have a site visit for them. One is for a community center. One is for a primary school. And in the Claxton Bay area. And those of you people are close in here that belongs to Claxton Bay in proper, be a part of this organization. Because I don't want, when the time has come, you tell your friend and you tell your partner, you want an organization that will seek the needs. This gentleman talked about education. Our children used to go to Marabella during the COVID time in buses. And there is spots and location that is in there. So I think I speak longer than I expect to. But people, we have to take on the beam from our eyes before we take on the log from someone else's eyes. I bathe in the Red Bridge nearly every morning. And I'm telling you, the day that we get Dr. Lee to give us that walk board, you know, because we need, listen, a lady talk about tourism. Claxton Bay could be a very well done tourism site. And you know, sometimes people are saying it again, we are our own demise. We had village council before. We had other amenities where we could have gone to the government, because there and the government was good friends. But to our own demise, we prefer not to go that way. And today, Claxton Bay do not have a community center. Councillor, you know I'm right. Councillors, you know I'm right. MP, you know I'm right. I'm not saying that to bring down nobody, but I'm saying that I'm ready to die, and before I die, I want to see a community center. Lay down in myself, and I can
Thank you, Bishop Mackenzie. Bishop Mackenzie, I don't make promises, but I'll tell you a promise here tonight. Put a UNC government in place to run this country, and you will get your community center in Claxton. I guarantee you that. All right, so I want to thank you all as we come to an end. As we come to a close, I really want to thank all of you all for staying tonight. I know we ran long. I think the conversation was very interesting. We did it differently from the other pre-budget meetings. I felt we needed to talk about education for our country. And before we end, and I'm happy to see my principal, everybody loves Raymond. Now every year before we go back to school in September, my office, the MP office for Pointe-A-Pierre, and his team, for the last 9 years we always did a back to school drive. The first few years we did a back to school for Hope, and we used to give out backpacks and stuff. Things have gotten a little bit tighter in the last 9 years financially, but we were able to get some sponsors to come on board with donations from myself and my staff. We see on the table a school supply package that is actually based on the book list from our primary school. Principal Suraj Bali could verify it. And what we have decided that we are giving out 25 packages, school supply packages, to our 8 primary schools throughout Pointe-A-Pierre, stretching from the south in the Marabella side to the north in Claxton Bay area. We have 8 primary schools, and we are giving 25 of these packages to the principal, who will then decide of the needy children of the school to give them these 25 supplies, so that we are giving it early so that the principal can do some homework with his staff or her staff to be able to call the parents who they identified as needy, to let them know based on your book list, do not purchase the stationery supplies. It will be supplied by the MP. I wish we could do more. We only could do 25 at this point in time, but if anybody is listening out there in Wonderland, in the World Wide Web, and you would like to make more donations, you please feel free to contact me, and we can do more packages to give it out to the primary schools. So, with further ado, I'd like to ask Principal Raymond, everybody loves Raymond, to be able to come and be the first principal to get their 25 packages. Principal? And that brings to an end to tonight. I'd just like to mention PRO of our party, Dr. Kurt Meru. He was always hardworking, taking the notes and to put together a document for our political leader, who I know has been watching our event here tonight. I want to thank her for her leadership, and it is based on her vision to have these pre-budget meetings throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad. And I say on the 21st of August, all roads lead to Siparia constituency, where it would be our last pre-budget meeting held by the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesla. And I know she has a few surprises as guest speakers. I leave that for her to tell. So again, reach home safe. We have doubles outside. Thank the media, TV6. I want to thank OWTU for being here. I would like to thank my colleagues on the head table. Without them, we would not have a great meeting. I think, did you enjoy our meeting? Yeah? And I want to thank the councillors for coming out. Reach home safe and stay tuned. I think tomorrow our meeting is where, Ravi? Randy. Sangre Grande. We'll be having our pre-budget meeting in Sangre Grande. Over the weekend on Saturday, we'll be having a pre-budget meeting in Tabaquite in the Gasparilla area. So thank you so much. Reach home safe.